Hello, everyone. Welcome to those who haven't joined any sessions yet, and welcome back to those who are continuing to view our sessions today. First up in this track is FIDO, the value of certification. And our presenter this morning is Rivera. She's our certification director, and if anyone knows about it, she does. Welcome, Ray.
Welcome to this track on the value of certification. I heard that I have some really stiff competition next door, so I appreciate everybody who showed up today. I don't have a whole lot of time, and I want to leave some time at the end for some questions, if anybody's joined online or if any of you have any questions. So quickly, we're just going to kind of go over the value of product certification or certification in general, and this is from FIDO's perspective. And then kind of go over the certification programs that we currently have in place and then what's on the horizon. So we got some exciting things coming up. First of all, from a value perspective, we've kind of identified 4 categories for product certification. So standards for the industry. So typically when you're looking at standards organizations such as FIDO Alliance, not all of them set up certifications for their standards. FIDO did. Market differentiation, so this is from the vendor's perspective, and then regulatory requirements and consumer protection. So all of this, I have slides on all of this. I'm going to go through these kind of fast because I do have a lot of slides. So when we're looking for a standards perspective, we're looking at conformant, compliant, and interoperable. So when we develop our certification programs based on our specifications for all of our products, we first looked at the conformancy. So does it conform to what the specification has defined? Is it compliant? And can it interoperate? So those are all for the products. Market differentiator, vendors who actually deploy our products, if they can throw the FIDO certified logo on that product on their web page, it kind of differentiates them from the marketplace. So they kind of stand out against the competition. They have increased product rigor because they meet all the requirements from a conformant or requirements from a security and privacy perspective. And it gives them a little competitive edge. And we see this all the time with our vendors who deploy our products. And we do actually have trademark licensing agreements to utilize the FIDO certified logo. And we do also look for violations, and we will contact you if you are violating that and ask you to please kindly either get certified or remove the logo. Regulatory requirement. We're seeing a lot of this happening with FIDO Alliance. We have our whole government deployment group or government group. We have our policy group. And then we deal a lot with like NIST, our ISO standards. We deal a lot with government regulatory bodies, and they are all looking for how FIDO meets those needs within the marketplace. So we see a lot of activities that happen within our working groups where we map our requirements to those specific needs from a regulatory perspective. And this isn't just in the United States, it's also GDPR. We have white papers that have been written out there. We have mapped to those requirements. And all of our programs actually have to meet from an access point perspective when we're collecting information, those regulatory requirements. So it's kind of twofold. So from a regulatory perspective, FIDO also, when our certification programs have to meet these requirements, as well as more and more demand for products that have the compliance aspect within them. Lastly, consumer protection. Deployments are increasing over and over and over for FIDO products. And we're seeing that there's a lot of interest and information that needs to be shared to the consumer side and how they understand FIDO. So typically, just regular consumers, you say, oh, we're trying to eliminate passwords. They're like, well, what does that mean? I mean, don't I need a password to access everything? And so it's kind of like an education piece. And they did the UX working group, set up, what is it, login at FIDO.com or .org. Login at FIDO.org. Okay, login with FIDO. Thank you. Thanks, David. So it's a whole like consumer education piece that we've done. And so if you have certified products, you're actually increasing the confidence of that consumer to use the product. You're addressing any security and trust issues that consumers might have. And then they're allowed to make informed purchases. All right? So that's the consumer protection. So about our certification programs, how many of you in here have actually certified products? 2? That's it. Any people know about our certification programs? Well, good. That's good. All right, so let's just quickly go through them. We have 3 FIDO certification programs. One is functional, one is Authenticator, and one is biometric. Okay? So functional is typically now just servers because we would certify servers, we would certify authenticators, we do under UAF clients, or we do client combos, or you can just certify a UAF authenticator. But every certified product of a server or an authenticator has to go through the functional. And the functional is a combination of 2 things, and a lot of people don't really understand this, but it's a combination of the conformance on how well that product meets the requirements or the specification in how it's written, and then also interoperability. So it has to meet both of those requirements, functional and interoperability. And all of our interop events require that you test your authenticator against the servers, and all servers test against all authenticators when we do our product testing. Right? The functional program has 3 guiding documents, the specifications. We also have, and if you're interested or if you're coming here to learn about the product certification, a lot of newbies, I guess would say, coming to FIDO, miss what we have, our common specification documents. Our common specification documents are really important because it relates to the metadata service, the FIDO registry of values, and helps you build your metadata. So there's a lot of common documents that are common to FIDO 2, UAF, and U2F, and it's really important to understand that. And then we have the functional certification policy, and that's the guiding document. So in 2018, the Security and Privacy Requirements Working Group came up with security requirements for authenticators. So I'm letting you know in 2018 this program was launched because I get a lot of questions when they search our product certification list that some authenticators say functional, some say level 1, some say level 2. So they don't understand what is a functional authenticator. Well, it's an authenticator that was certified by FIDO prior to the launch of this Authenticator certification program that has not taken the time to meet the security and privacy requirements that we have in place. Okay, so just a little information there. For Authenticator certification, you have to achieve the functional, which is the conformance and interoperability, as well as the security evaluation. And the security evaluation depends on where that happens, depends on the level that you're trying to achieve. And then pass both of those, and you receive the Authenticator certification. The security evaluation is a process of several steps, and it has a vendor questionnaire that's completed by the vendor, and they list out how they meet that requirement. Then there are test procedures, so whether this is being evaluated by our security secretariat for level 1 or anything higher than level 1 is done at an accredited lab. Those test procedures are then evaluated by the specific lab or our security secretariat, and then it comes out with a FIDO evaluation report of a pass or a fail. If you pass, then you receive the certification. There are 3 levels. Their base levels are 1, 2, and 3. Level 1 is if you're implementing FIDO, that's the baseline security. There are vendor questions related specifically just to level 1, and it's pretty much an attestation that you meet that requirement. Nobody's looking at documents, nobody's doing any pen testing or anything like that. Level 2 is adds the requirement that you have to use an allowed restricted operating environment, such as a TEE or a secure element. Right? So that has to be implemented on your device to achieve that. Level 3, we take into consideration all the different hardware attacks, all right? So, and also I'd like to mention at level 3, we do have a companion program requirement. So typically you're looking at devices that have achieved common criteria certification already, and we've done all the mappings to those certifications to where there's only a small delta of FIDO that needs to be evaluated because of it. So it's kind of a cost saving and a time saving. I will say, is the red back? Within each one of them, we have a plus. So level 1 plus, which we're getting ready to launch towards the end of this year for software authenticators, kind of like white box crypto. Level 2 plus is not in development at this point in time. It's kind of been put on hold, but we're looking to try to map to the FIPS 140-3. And then level 3 has a plus on it as well. Right? So those are higher levels within each of those base levels. The program documents, so we have our policy document. We have the Authenticator security and privacy requirements. We have a vendor questionnaire worksheet. We have a list of approved AROEs, which is the restricted operating environment. So this is what we allow. If you're using an AROE that is not on that list, then you have to petition the working group to add it. And there's specified requirements for that. And then the allowed crypto list. So we also have a crypto list that you have to use in order to get your product certified. So that's evaluated. And then the metadata requirements. Okay. So those are the documents for that. Biometric certification. So this also was launched in 2018. Yeah, I think so. Right. Gail's here. We have the privilege to have one of our labs here for this program, so it's great. The certification program is basically for a component certificate, biometric. So this is like the biometric that goes into your phone, right? That program was developed through it's now a new working group, right? So now the biometric working group is no longer a subgroup of the CWG. So what's tested? So we test the false accept rate, the false reject rate, presentation attack detection. And we also have a portion that identifies a way that if you just want to come in to get your product certified under this program, that you can do what we call a self-attestation. However, the lab still does an evaluation based on the data that you provide them to make sure that you meet the requirements. Okay? This program is an independent program from the Authenticator certification program, except for if you're trying to achieve level 3 or 3 plus and you use a biometric. In that case, that product needs to have a FIDO certified biometric component. Okay? So it's kind of complicates the ecosystem a little bit in developing this type of a product. However, it does make a more secure and private product itself, right? Highly secure. So that's the only time that the two of those programs will ever collide, okay? The documents, similar documents, we have the program policy document, we have the requirements document, and we have what we call an allowed integration document, and then also there are certain metadata requirements. The allowed integration document, I'll just kind of briefly talk about that. And that is defined by the vendor, given to the lab, and what it is, it's the specifications on how this component would be integrated into an authenticator or into the final product, okay? So we do have a template for that. If you're interested in going through this program, if you have a product for it, we do have a template that kind of makes it easier to understand exactly what is needed to meet that requirement. Okay, we doing good? Yeah? All right, so what's on the horizon? I have 10 minutes? Okay, cool. I'll be able to get through all my slides. Yay. FIDO device onboarding certification. So this is FDO. This is our IoT certification. Basically, it's zero-touch onboarding service for FIDO. The specification is in a working draft and published. Is that correct? Is it a proposed standard? Yeah. Okay. So that's David's side. I just do this side. So it's a proposed standard. It's published on the website. The fun thing about this program is that tomorrow We have several vendors that are going to do pre-testing, so from a conformance perspective. So the conformance tools are developed. We've defined what interoperability is, and we're going to do the checking to make sure that everything's working as planned. So that's pretty exciting. This program itself will also have a functional aspect, so they have to pass conformance tools. You have to pass in interoperability. And then we're developing an IoT security evaluation. It's very similar to the Authenticator certification. We've identified threat models, how we cure those threat models, and what requirements have to be, like security measures and security goals that have to be put into place to mitigate against those threats. We are only launching this with a level 1 at this time. Right? It takes a long time to develop the higher levels for any certification program when you're dealing with security and privacy, as well as needing to map to other companion programs out there. Okay? So we're launching with functional and level 1 only. So it's an internal evaluation. And then you get those and you have your certification. The elements that are evaluated, the hardware, the software, the different sensors that are in the product itself, actuators that are within the product itself, and then also the security and privacy evaluation. So these are kind of like the elements. And if you read the specification, it talks about a rendezvous server, it talks about the device itself, and then the device onboarding service. Okay. The next new program that is hopefully launching by the end of this year, I say hopefully because every time I say, oh, it's launching tomorrow or it's next week, and it always gets delayed, so I'm just like, hopefully. But we're making really good progress with this program. It's the Document Authenticity Certification. So it's a program that is being developed to determine if the document itself is an authentic document. And it has a lot of similar elements as the biometric certification program. And the testing that is going to happen for this program, the reason why I say it's very similar is that it's a combination of digital image testing and then also the physical document test. And so there's an aspect where actually people will come to an accredited lab and whatever document is being tested will have that document to give to them. All right? So similar things like document false reject rate, document false accept. All of these are going to be triaged in a level of fraud risk, which we have categorized as A, B, or C. So these are all defined within the requirements documents. They are not finalized at this point in time, but they're very close to being review draft. So we're hoping over the next month or so to be able to get them to the board level approved and approved for publication. So they're really, really close. And then all of this testing is done in an accredited lab. So if you're not familiar with our programs, I will point out that all of our certifications, except for functional, have an accredited lab aspect to it. And our labs go through training, they have tests that they have to go through, they have to meet certain application requirements in order to get listed as a FIDO accredited lab. So it's not like we just pick a lab says, hey, I want to do this testing. We do our due diligence to make sure that they meet and have the capabilities of doing such testing. Okay. And then lastly, if you were here yesterday morning and you caught my little show where we launched the FIDO Certified Professional Program. It's a very unique program to FIDO Alliance. It's a professional certification versus a product certification, which is usually what we always do. So it's exciting for us. I think it'll help with organizations that want to deploy FIDO so they can hire professionals that are knowledgeable in deploying FIDO. And the exam outline, this is just a high-level outline, analyzing business requirements, validating, designing, testing, deploying, and then being able to educate others about FIDO and the value that brings to an organization from a security and privacy perspective. As a professional, you get become a member of a professional group. You get a certificate and an e-badge. There's member benefits that we're developing for this. You have to abide by the code of conduct. There's annual maintenance fees, as well as continuing professional education credits so that you can continue to grow your knowledge base in FIDO and authentication, identity, access management, et cetera. Okay? And I think that's it. I think I did it in time, too, right? Are there any questions from anybody?
Here we go.
You better not be hard technical questions, otherwise I'm going to have to divert to John. I know.
All right, so mine's kind of a technical question. So
Okay.
in all these security things, typically the vulnerabilities come up in the implementation, right? So you guys could come up with the greatest protocol on earth, but if people implement it wrong, their devices are going to go out and be vulnerable. Is there any push to like agree on like the basic source code and open source it? So like this is an acceptable FIDO firmware?
So I know that we've talked about open sourcing and being kind of like in those more collaborative areas. I don't think that we define a specific firmware. We define how, like if you update it, what happens and what you need to do and things like that. But we don't really have anything specific on that.
So there are open source FIDO.
Yeah, but it's not FIDO.
Yeah.
We're not. FIDO hasn't
So-
said it's FIDO, right?
So Google has open sourced both a
That's right. They did, didn't they?
yes, and they did it through FIDO, but we
Yes, they
keep
did. I
forgetting
forgot
about
about
it.
that. I know, we forget about
so-
it. Sorry.
So there is a Rust implementation that runs on the Nordic
Yeah.
semiconductor board that is a reference. In some of the 2.1 updates have been done, but it's not necessarily on the front burner at Google, as near as I can tell. There's also a conformance test that they also released. The FIDO conformance tests do have negative tests to check implementations. They're not just positive tests, so there's a fair number of unhappy path tests, not necessarily as many as I would like, but they are there. So FIDO has mostly taken the conformance testing approach rather than open source. So some of us who use, we've talked from a UCO point of view, we have discussed it. We did do some open source things, but basically because of our contracts for our secure elements, we basically can't. So a lot of the NXP people and such will all have the same problem with making any of our libraries open source.
Yeah, I forget about all the products. There's like 864 certified products. So.
Thank you, John.
Yeah,
have a
thanks, John.
Question online from Chase J. What are the entities that would get document certification? Is this for end users, government agencies, et cetera?
Okay, you want to take this one too, John? No, I'm just kidding. So I'm going to So it's for different government agencies. There's a lot of vendors out there that develop products that review your documents. The example that I typically give is like if you're going through TSA, we all travel, and the scanner that they present the information on for your passport or your driver's license is a typical product that would go through that certification program. However, I'd like to also say that with the document authenticity certification program, we are doing a selfie match on your device, right? Which kind of takes that whole program a little bit further down the road of account recovery and things like that, as well as the entire binding aspects. But those have not yet been defined. They're in the early stages. Binding is way early stages. And then the selfie match, they've got a requirements document that they're working on and that they're going through right now. So that's a little further along. So eventually, that'll be the 3 aspects of that program that'll be out.
Great. And we've got time for one more question. We're going to take one here in the audience live.
I actually have a bunch, but I'll stick to
Well, you can just get with me later if you want.
I'll just stick to one. So for identity proofing, you got over 10,000 documents that are government issued and trusted, right? And then even for ID verification with NIST and Contera, right? People have been already going for IL2, IL3 certification from them. So how do you differentiate or compete or partner with what's happening with the, the whole identity verification proofing world?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. We actually have a session at 4 this afternoon on this program, and I think that I would be better served to ask there, and I think we could take that as a note to address it. And David's moderating it, so we have a whole panel, and I think that would be really good too, because Jeremy Grant, Stephanie Shookers, and myself will be moderating it. It is, yeah. So, I mean, you know, when you look at the vast amount of documents that exist in the world, which we have mapped, we have tables and, you know, Excel sheets full of what those documents are. So we understand the magnitude of the different documents, especially on a global scale. And when you consider, you know, driver's license, and then each state has their driver's licenses, and then each state has just a regular identifier, you know, like a document that you can get to be just, you know, this is me, proof of who I am, right? Passports, et cetera, yeah. We're trying to wade through those waters. Yeah. Right, right. Well, I know we're out of time, but I will say that, you know, a lot of organizations, government organizations have come to us with this program and are really interested in it, and we've spoken to many of them. So.
Thank you again, Ray.
Yeah, thank you. If
Appreciate
you have
the
other
talk.
questions, just get me afterwards.
And
I'm around.